Today, we're diving into this really powerful and, honestly, often overlooked connection between our senses and the health of our brain. And along the way, we're going to uncover this invisible social barrier that keeps millions of people from getting the help they really need.
So, to get why this is all so important, we have to start with a very real, very powerful emotion: fear. I mean, think about it. For adults over 65, dementia is the single most feared disease. We're talking more than cancer. It's a fear that, touches almost all of us in some way.
But here's where the story takes a turn. From that fear to hope. Research shows that while sure, our DNA and our age play a role, roughly half of our personal risk for cognitive decline is tied to things that we can potentially change. That's huge. We are not powerless here.
And when you look at those changeable factors, two of the absolute biggest are our senses. In fact, get this, untreated hearing loss is considered the largest single modifiable risk factor for dementia. So, what in the world is going on here? Well, that brings us right to the science, the core connection between what we see, what we hear, and how our brains work. And believe me, this link is way stronger than most people think. The official term for this is dual sensory impairment, or DSI. And the key thing to get here is that this isn't just a simple 1 + 1 = 2 situation. No way. The combined loss of both hearing and vision creates what scientists call a negative synergistic effect, meaning the impact is so much greater than just adding the two problems together.
And this chart just shows you how much greater. It's pretty staggering. A massive study, we're talking over 5 million people, found that hearing loss by itself doubled the risk of cognitive impairment. Vision loss tripled it, but when you have both, the odds can skyrocket, an incredible 8 times higher.
So, okay, the data is crystal clear, but it just begs the question, right? Why? How does struggling to hear or see have such a direct and powerful impact on our brain?
Well, scientists have 5 leading theories about why this happens. For example, there's the cognitive load theory. Think of it like this. Your brain has to work so hard just to make sense of blurry sounds and sights that it's basically stealing energy from other important jobs, like memory. Or there's the cascade hypothesis, which suggests that sensory loss makes people pull away from social situations. And we know that isolation is a huge risk factor for cognitive decline. The exact why is still being studied, but the bottom line is clear. When you starve the brain of rich sensory information, there are serious consequences. And this leads us to the central mystery of this whole thing. We know that treatments, things like hearing aids and cataract surgery, can seriously reduce this risk. So why on earth do so many people wait, sometimes for years, to get the help they need? Well, the answer isn't really medical. It's social.
We're talking about an invisible, but incredibly powerful barrier: stigma. It's the hidden villain in this story, and it affects millions of people on a really deep, personal level.
Public health expert Dr. Laura Nyblade gives a really powerful definition here. She says stigma isn't something a person has, it's a social process that people do to each other. It starts by labeling a difference, then you attach negative stereotypes to it, and that creates this us versus them mentality that in the end is used to justify discrimination.
And this whole process isn't just one big abstract idea. It actually shows up in distinct, tangible ways that people feel every single day. So let's break down 3 of the most common forms.
First up, you've got internalized stigma. And honestly, this is the most insidious kind. It's when all those negative messages from the outside world actually get inside our own heads and we start to believe them. They become part of how we see ourselves.
Advocate and leadership coach Eb Dubow, he describes this feeling perfectly. Talking about the first time he wore his hearing aids, he said, "I kept looking over my shoulder. Are people staring at me? Do they think I'm broken?" That one question, am I broken? That is the voice of internalized stigma.
Then you've got these 2 other forms. Anticipated stigma is the fear of what might happen. Worrying that you'll be judged or treated as less capable. That fear all by itself can be enough to stop someone from even trying to get help. And then there's experienced stigma. That's when the fear becomes real. It's actual enacted discrimination, like being left out of a conversation or, being made fun of.
Okay, so understanding the problem is the first step, but the most important part of this story is that there is a path forward. We can absolutely fight back against stigma, both as individuals and, just as importantly, as a society. Eb Dubow, whose words we just heard, he actually outlines this really powerful 5-step personal strategy for fighting back. It starts inside by challenging your own negative self-talk. Then it moves outward. You open up to someone you trust, you find a community so you know you're not alone, you learn to advocate for your own needs, and finally, you use that whole journey to find a new sense of purpose.
But personal strength on its own isn't enough. We also need systemic change. As researcher Dr. Margaret Walhagen argues, we can't put the entire burden of this fight on the individual. The most powerful way to fight stigma is to normalize hearing health. And what does that mean? It means making hearing screenings a totally routine, totally expected part of every single healthcare checkup.
And that really leaves us with one final, crucial question. Think about it. We get our teeth checked, we get our eyes checked, we get our blood pressure checked, and we don't think twice about it. Isn't it finally time we started treating our hearing not as some afterthought, but as the essential part of our overall health that it truly is?